Hey everyone, I'm Alex, and this is Manaspike Gaming, the place where we explore the competitive play-to-win side of Magic the Gathering on Arena. I haven't uploaded a video in some time. I was kind of waiting for War to come out so we could have some new and interesting content to talk about, and so I wanted to do something different. In the vein of doing something different, I actually have a guest today, so I'd like everyone to say hello to KarnaTTN.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so KarnaTTN just hit top 20 with this great new Grixis Control list. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, I want to get to know Karna a bit better. So could you give us some background on your Magic and gaming experience?
Yeah, so when I was about 18, 19, I used to be kind of a serious grinder in Texas. So I'd travel around going to different PTQs. I started with Standard, and that was pretty much the only format I played. But as I got more serious about Magic, I started learning how to play well in Limited and Modern as well.
Oh, excellent. So what set did you start playing Standard in?
I first started playing in Rise of Eldrazi.
Oh, that was a good set to join. That's exciting times. So very cool. So do you have any, you've hit top 20 on the ladder this season. Do you have any other PTQ top 8s or anything like that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I think I've top 8'd maybe 7 or 8 PTQs in all 3 formats. And I've won one of them. So I went to Pro Tour Journey to Nyx way back when.
Oh, wow! I didn't know. I didn't realize you had actually played in a Pro Tour. That's very cool. Well, man, we're excited to have you on the stream. You're going to help a scrub like me get better. So that is exciting. So let's go ahead and dig into your list a little bit.
Sure.
First off, why Grixis?
I mean, when I first saw Nicol Bolas spoiled, I knew I just had to play with him. Like he's just too cool not to try out.
Yeah, I mean he's pretty ridiculous. I've played about 30 games with this deck, and my biggest takeaway is that Nicol Bolas is busted, and he's absolutely as good as everyone expected him to be.
Yeah, he has some stiff competition with Teferi, because I think Teferi is probably one of the best planeswalkers of all time as well. So
I would agree with you, and they're kind of filling a similar space at 5 mana. So what do you think that Big Nicky brings to the table that Teferi doesn't bring?
So there's a couple of things. One, so Nicol Bolas, his +1, I think might be like the best +1 on a planeswalker of all time. Teferi, his +1 is really good because if you can play Teferi and then have mana open for like a kill spell or counter magic, that's really strong. But Nicol Bolas is just more card advantage because you're taking away a card from them and getting one yourself. His -3 also kills something instead of bouncing it.
Right.
And his ultimate...
Yeah, Teferi can be really frustrating when you try to answer something and you're like, well, I'm going to have to deal with that again in 3 more draws.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can be definitely a problem. So yeah, I definitely see that being a positive.
Yeah.
So we've made a lot of analogs to the Esper Control deck. How does this deck in general play out differently than Esper?
So with Grixis, the format's still like very new, and I figured there was a lot of different ways you could go with it. You could go with like, more of like a Drago control shell. You go for like a discard disinformation campaign shell. But I figured like the power level is so strong that I wanted to try out trying to playing tap out control, especially because with Teferi, Drago makes more sense because you can like have counter magic open. But with Nicol Bolas, it's a little harder to protect him. And so by playing tap out, I think you kind of just try to leverage the strengths of the cards you're playing.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. So, I mean, that's interesting to note. You're not running any permission in the deck list at all. So you're focusing on things like Thought Erasure or just removal to deal with threats as they happen. I think it's a really unique way to approach control. So why control over mid-range? Specifically, what pushed you to control instead of just playing like Little Nicky and then, going with a more mid-range shell?
Yeah, so I tried a lot of different Grixis mid-range variants before War of the Spark. And at the end of the day, like everything I tried just felt kind of underwhelming because it felt like you were going in too many different directions at the same time. you you had like early creatures for pressure, but since you weren't just trying to kill them early, the pressure oftentimes like didn't do enough. And then you're also playing like disruption, and it just felt like you're kind of going in too many different directions instead of just having like one game plan that you do well.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I tried a lot of different mid-range lists, and the creatures just felt like they didn't have enough punch, or it felt like I couldn't protect my threats, which is why I like your tap out control approach to this. So, what sort of meta does a deck like this thrive in? Like, what decks are you happy to see?
Honestly, I'm happy to see any other mid-range deck. I feel like this deck excels against mid-range, and it actually does.
So you're happy to see Sultai, you're happy to see stuff like that. What about aggro? Like if someone plays a basic mountain on turn one, are you happy, sad, or in the middle?
If they're on the play, I'm kind of sad. That usually goes for any deck I play against mono red.
Right.
But usually
That's
like
pretty fair.
I'm pretty happy because Augur of Bolas has been like instrumental against aggro decks, because now like
Yeah,
instead of
he's a great tool for control. I'm really happy to see him back in the format.
yeah, because against like mono red and other aggro decks, even if they play like a 1/1, you just have to keep taking the damage and it adds up over time. But he slows them down a lot, because if they have like a 1/1 or a 2/1 pyromancer, they have to spend a turn, bolt it, deal with it somehow, and that can really buy you some time that you need.
Yeah, I really like having him as a blocker against mono red specifically as well, because it shuts off Spectacle. I think this is just great for developing card advantage and developing an early board that can help deal with some of the aggro decks. So I'm really happy to see that you're running the full suite there. So let's just segue into that and just run through the list kind of card by card. We'll try to group things a little bit so they're not. It's not too repetitive. So we'll go ahead and jump down. Thought Erasure is great. We've seen this in a lot of different decks. And I think this fits really well into your tap out strategy. The other thing I like about this card is that surveilling in best of one is really great, because it lets you shape your hand based on what your opponent's playing. So like if you're playing against like Esper Control, you can pitch that copy of Cry the Carnarium that you see on the top of your deck. Do you have anything else you want to say about Thought Erasure?
I mean, it's so good. It's honestly one of the main reasons to play black blue anything, and it's almost a guaranteed 4 of in any like blue black list I play.
Yeah, it's a good. I tried to build some Dimir mid-range and control lists with War, and the deck list started with 4 copies of Thought Erasure. It's just kind of a given that you're going to run it. So let's go ahead and move on to some of the more interesting, inclusions. Like we got a new card from War, Angrath's Rampage. I know your early versions of this list were running 4 copies, and I like that you cut some numbers of this card down to run more targeted removal, because when your opponent like sacrifices a Lana or Elves, it doesn't feel very good. But like I mentioned with Thought Erasure, what I really like about this card is that it's modal. And in best of one, this card is good against aggro, it's good against mid-range, and it's good against control. Do you have anything else you want to add about this card?
Yeah, like you said before, I first started with 4 copies because it's a new card and I like to test things out. But it's strong in its flexibility, but sometimes if they've kind of flooded the board, it's gonna not be as effective with dealing with creatures. But it's almost always the best way to deal with the planeswalker, because it's just 2 mana.
Right. And then being able to get rid of a planeswalker for 2 mana is such a huge tempo swing. Like that's just excellent to see. And just as a side note, this is doesn't come up very often. Being able to sacrifice an artifact is huge against the Immortal Sun, because this deck has a really hard time winning against a resolved Immortal Sun. And watching an Esper Acuity player concede on the spot after they fetch up their Immortal Sun feels really good.
Yeah, Immortal. It's funny because Immortal Sun, if you resolve that against an Esper player, it's pretty much lights out. Like there's almost nothing they can do about it. On the other hand, for Grixis, like we just don't care because you have Bedevil and Angrath's Rampage.
Right. It's awesome to have that flexibility. Modal cards like this are going to be key for the best of one meta going forward, and I like to see that you included 3 copies of it. So I see you're running Nixilis's Cruelty. I think that's great with cast down. I mean, to me, that is a less restrictive cast down with the bonus effect of exiling. There's not very much in this format that's greater than 5 toughness that we need to kill, and having a quick answer to a Rekindling Phoenix is really cool.
Yeah, it's really in there just as a nod to Rekindling Phoenix.
Right. Yeah, you have to respect that card right now. I do think Gruul is one of the best decks even now into the war meta. I know a couple of guys that are playing it in the top 10 right now with exactly 0 cards from war.
Of course, yeah.
So it's still really good, turns out. So all right, so we'll move on. You got Cry the Carnarium. That's just a great card. It's good against mono white, it's good against mono red. But what's interesting is you're running Widespread Brutality. That's a really interesting inclusion that I haven't seen any other Grixis Control decks run. So I'd love to hear you talk about that some.
Yeah, so like we mentioned before, with Teferi, it's easier to protect him when you can like play him on 5 or 6 and have absorb, negate, or cast down mana open. Nicol Bolas is a little different because when you play him against a threat heavy board, his +1 they're not going to exile something that can kill him, and if you -3, it's easy for them to finish Bolas off. And so I was trying to think about ways I could protect him when I play him, and I figured trying to take advantage of the mass mechanic could do just that. So like it's kind of a 2-for-1. I'm trying to clear the board, and also like having a body behind can help a future Nicol Bolas, or just even sometimes just win the game.
Yeah, it's again, like you bring up a great point, that this can be good in a lot of different situations. Like if you draw a copy of Cry the Carnarium against Esper, you're super bummed because it's completely dead. But this card is not dead against Esper. And kind of segueing into Enter the God Eternals, I've won quite a few games from having an amassed army on the board and then killing their threat and then getting that +4 pump to my army to swing in for lethal.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that amass mechanic has been really fun for me so far. You're not leaning on it hard, but just that little edge is nice to have.
Yeah, I think half the games I win with this deck is just killing them with like a 10/10 zombie.
Yeah, they get kind of ridiculous. So let's move on. You've got a copy of Bedevil, and again, the whole theme of this deck is that it's flexible. This is just more flexible removal because it can hit artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers. And I like that you're running a split of Angrath's Rampage and Bedevil because it's nice to have answers at every part of your curve, but sometimes you just have to target the creature that matters. Do you have anything else you want to add about this?
Yeah, like there's not much I can add to what you just said, but yeah, you're right. Like it's about the flexibility and paying the extra mana over Angrath's Rampage to make it instant speed is pretty important sometimes.
Yeah, I like this inclusion quite a bit because casting Rampage and just them sacrificing a Llanowar Elf or like a 1/1 token just doesn't feel very good. So it's nice to have a targeted removal. So this is kind of a weird discussion. I don't think ever in my Magic career I would say that a 4/5 flyer for 4 is just okay. Like creatures have just gotten to a point where they're ridiculous. But I like that you're running God-Eternal Kefnet as a one of. I don't think this is a card like Delver of Secrets where you have to lean all into, okay, I'm running this card, so I need to run a lot of instants and sorceries so I can get value off of it. I think this card's just good as a 4/5 flyer that has some resiliency, and if you get some bonus off the other spells, that's just kind of gravy. What's your experience been with this card?
Yeah, so if I can play it on turn 4, a lot of times I find it hard to lose because against aggro, it's just gonna block and eat everything. Even if they trade with it, it's just gonna come back later. Same for control. Like
Right.
if I resolve it, it's a pain for them to deal with. Sometimes like I'm still testing it, and sometimes like I'm not sure if if it's a win more card or if it's just like actually like pulling its weight.
I think it's great. I mean, it's a 4/5 flyer for 4, and that you don't have many targets for that cost reduction. I mean, you have Enter the God Eternals, you have Chemister's Insight, and then like you can reduce Widespread Brutality for 1.
That's another reason why I chose Nixilis' Cruelty, so I can get that 1 mana.
Okay, yeah, I can respect that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, if it turns out that Kefnet is actually like insane and everyone needs to be playing more, then I think it's just gonna make Enter the God Eternal, like cards that have 2 or more generic in their casting costs. I think that's all gonna kind of go up in stock.
Yeah, I mean, like that card is just good even when you don't get that reduction, and I think the reduction at this point is just a huge bonus. And speaking of that reduction, I see that you're running a single copy of Commence the Endgame. This card is great, so just tell me what you think about it.
At first, like I thought it might be underwhelming because I'm like, oh, I'm paying 6 mana for maybe a 2/2, but because I'm running like 4 Chemister's Insight, I have draw and Nicol Bolas and cantrips with Augur of Bolas. A lot of times it's just like a uncounterable flash creature that kills another creature that's attacking me. Sometimes like I can just get in for lethal by adding it onto a mass zombie that I have on the board, and against control, like it's just a problem for them to deal with because it's uncounterable, and so they have to spend mana. They have to tap out to usually remove it.
Right, and that leaves you a window to resolve Liliana or Nicol Bolas. I like this. I didn't like this card at first when I first saw it. I was like, 6 mana for an instant is just too high. But then I thought about it, and every time I've cast this card, it's been for 4 or 5 or more. And if you told me that you could give me a 5/5 creature with flash that can't be countered and draws 2 cards, I'd be excited about that. So I think just changing the way you look at the card, the perspective you're looking at it, can really change your evaluation of it. So we mentioned you've got 4 copies of Chemister's Insight. That's just to refill your hand. That card's been insane for quite some time. We don't really need to talk about it. So you got 3 copies of Enter the God Eternals. You told me that you ran 4 copies of it early iterations of this deck. What do you think about the card, and why'd you make the change from 4 to 3?
I'm a huge fan of this card. It does so much for 5 mana, and a lot of times against aggro or mid range, it's especially against mono red. Like if I cast 1, it's just hard to lose.
Right, I've felt the same way in the games I've played. When you're getting the body, the life gain, and the removal, it's huge. It's lights out, really.
Yeah, I mean, killing something, getting a body, and gaining life is just so much value. A lot of times, almost always, like I'll play this on 5 instead of Nicol Bolas, so then he can be safe when I play him the next turn.
Yeah, that's a play pattern I've seen a lot as well. It makes a lot of sense to do that. And then also just having an answer to the God Eternals. Those cards are proving similar to the gods from the previous blocks. They're really hard to deal with.
Yep, the only ways to deal with them is going to be countering, targeted discard, or milling them.
Right. And I also, the same game that I got to play Angrath's Rampage against the Esper Acuity player, I copied this with Kefnet 3 times and then milled my opponent. So that was pretty fun too. I've only won 1 of 30 games that way, but it was fun nonetheless.
I've never been able to mill my opponent, but that's pretty cool. I said I haven't been able to mill any of my opponents out, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, generally the 12/12 zombie does the job, but it turns out I just had to mill them because they were Esper Acuity, and they run too many answers. Oh, yeah. So let's move on to the all-star of this deck. I mean, Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. Everyone was going crazy about it when this card was spoiled, and for me, it's lived up to the hype. What's your experience been?
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned before, there's some similarities to Teferi, but his -3 is more final because you're just killing something instead of tucking it away. And with Teferi, his ultimate, usually like 9 times out of 10 you're gonna win, but sometimes like
I'd even say 99 out of 100 times. I haven't lost a game after getting the ultimate off, but I have seen it happen. You're right.
But with Nicol Bolas, the game is just over.
Yeah, it's a really cool mechanic, and I wish the animation for it was a little better. It's not a very exciting animation, but honestly, by the time my Nicol Bolas has been at 6 or 7, my opponent's so far behind they just concede. So I very rarely even get to use the ultimate because I've just won the game by that point.
For sure. The funny thing is, Nicol Bolas is actually deadliest against mono red because they have so few permanents and cards in hand that anything you take is like it sets them so far back.
You get to start exiling their lands really early. I've ran into that situation quite a bit. My favorite is when one of my opponents, he had to exile his 4th land, and then he drew Frenzy. And I got to see the Frenzy off a Thought Erasure, and he didn't get to cast it because he was light on lands when my Nicol Bolas was at 5. Like, that was a huge turn, and I was really impressed with him in that game.
Yeah, that's the difference because.
So have you?
Yeah, go ahead. That's one of the differences because Teferi against mono red, like you play Teferi on 5, and they don't care. Like they'll probably just kill you in 2 turns, anyways.
Yeah, he's been great against. I haven't been disappointed at any point I resolved Nicol Bolas. Like, even if he immediately eats a Vraska's Contempt, I'm never sad about it. Like, he's just been great. And it's good because that's what the whole deck's built around. So we're going to close out with Liliana Dreadhorde General. Man, this card has been overperforming for me. Like, I evaluated it highly when the set came out. But I knew the -4 was going to be powerful, but I didn't really consider just how powerful it was going to be. This card has just
at -4 and your opponent only has 2 creatures, like 9 times out of 10, like you've won the game because at that point there's so far behind.
That's lights out. Yeah, she is exceptional, and the card advantage from the zombies plus building your army with that. I've been or not army, building your board state. Got to make sure I don't say building an army because that could be confusing in an amass deck.
Yeah, but she's one of the most well designed planeswalkers I've ever seen because all of her abilities like mesh together so well.
Yeah, she's great. Actually, one of the first sets I played in was Innistrad, so I'm used to the 3-drop Liliana. So it's nice to have a really strong Lil we can play again. We can't get it back with Sun Titan, but it's still pretty cool. So are you happy with the 4-2 split between Nicol Bolas and Liliana, or would you ever consider running more copies of Liliana or less copies of Nicol Bolas?
I am happy. The only changes I might make is cutting like probably 1 copy of either for an Ugin, and at most 2 just because he can deal with enchantments.
Dude, Ugin's been overperforming for me as well. I'm really impressed with him.
So that's the only change I'd consider making to that 4-2 split, like just throwing him in the mix. But for the most part, like I've been happy with them.
Yeah, I've been very happy as well. So your mana base is pretty straightforward. You need to be more black heavy because of Nicol Bolas, and you're running every shockland you can and most of the checks you can. I like that you're running 25 lands. I think you have enough draw and enough filtering with Thought Erasure that you don't need the 26th land, and especially with the hand smoothing algorithm in Best of 1, I don't think you need the 26th land. But I do think 24 would be way too greedy, so I think you nailed it there.
Yeah, you really just need to get to 4 mana, and then once you start hitting insights, you can start kind of getting whatever lands you need.
Yeah, I found that I generally have 4 mana and can cast Chemister's Insight on time, or I have 5 lands and then I just slam a Nicol Bolas or an Enter the Gods, Enter the God Eternals, and I'm pretty happy. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about with the list before we move into gameplay?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all.
Well, excellent. Well, we're gonna go ahead and jump on the ladder, and we're gonna play a couple of rounds. I am sitting at 95%. I was up in the top 1000s, and I've been trying some bad decks lately. So let's see if we can get a couple of those ranks back. So when I was looking at your Twitter, which is linked below, you guys should check it out. I saw that you also played a little StarCraft, which I think is pretty cool. And I think there's a lot of crossover between Magic players and StarCraft. So I think that's cool to see it moving into Arena. All right. So we're on the draw here. You can see my hand, correct? Perfect. I think we keep this. Do you have any thoughts?
So on the play, it'd be like a lot more riskier to keep it, but since we're on the draw, so we're gonna see an extra card. Plus, we have Thought Erasure mana to look for another land. I think this is a fine keep.
Yeah, I like this on the draw because it's Surveil here. We have an answer here, and if it's aggro, we just get to lights out with that Enter the Carnarium or Cry the Carnarium. All right.
Yeah, so he might play like Growth Chamber Guardian or like an Incubation Druid.
So if he plays, Growth Chamber Guardian, do we cast it down immediately, or do we wait to get kind of greedy and try? Okay, so Wild Growth Walker. But if he had cast a Growth Chamber Guardian, would you just kill it on sight, or would you wait to see if he tries to activate it?
So it's usually situational, but because we have like a lot of answers in our hand, I would get greedy and just like I would just take 2 damage if he wants to do that.
Yeah, so this one feels pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
All right, well, I don't know. Do you think what would you take here?
So it's hard to say because Vivian Reed obviously is very good. Bantu is really good. He wouldn't be able to take a lot of advantage of Bantu because he doesn't have a lot of permanent sacrifice now. But Bantu would be kind of annoying to deal with later. And I feel like because he's light on lands and he only has like a couple of creatures, we could answer Vivian with our own amass creature.
Oh, I lost you for a second. So you're saying Seeker Squire? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I lost you. And I think we're just gonna leave this Thought Erasure on top because he's got a lot of good things in his hand we want to deal with. Let's go ahead and mute this guy. I am sorry that I'm playing a little slow for him. But you know, it is what it is. Getting just a little bit of lag in the audio. Sorry about that. It stinks that we lost our Enter the God-Eternal, but worse things have happened. So, do you want to grab the Vivian or the Bantu here?
I would grab the Bantu just because it's going to be more annoying to deal with later. And like even if you grab one Vivian, like he's going to have the other one.
Yeah, I agree. And we don't really want this land, so we're going to pitch that. So he needs to hit runner lands and then cast his Vivians, and then we're going to be in a bad spot. But I think until then, we're doing pretty okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play the untapped land there so we don't have to shock ourselves when we get to cast Chemister's Insight. That should find us some more action. And then he can ping away for 1 damage, all he wants. But when that Vivian comes down, things are really going to change. All right. So looks like we get to just slam jam a Nicol Bolas here, yeah?
And he has like no way to really pressure it.
Yeah. And so we're going to start just attacking his resources now. Even if he draws a land and casts a Vivian Reed. Oh, there's a Bedevil. So I feel like we're doing pretty well here.
Yeah.
What did he pitch? A Choop.
Okay,
yeah, so we didn't get any value out of that, but that's okay.
Yeah, he's still missing that land.
Oh, there's the lands he needed. All right. So let's think about this for a sec here. What lines do we have? He's going to go ahead and plus Nicol Bolas because he's going to plus. So let's see if that changes our.
Yeah, because we're going to plus him no matter what.
Yeah. So
there's a couple things we can do here. We could like. We have 5 mana, so we have enough for like Ob Nixilis, Cruelty, and a cast down. But I kind of like playing Thought Erasure and then holding up Cruelty mana to just like kill the 3/5.
I can respect that. So we'll Thought Erasure here, and then Cruelty on the Wild Growth Walker. I like that too. I don't think we need another land, do we? No.
But Yeah, you don't have to Cruelty right now. You can just wait.
That's true. No reason to play our instant speed spell at sorcery speed. Yeah, and see the good thing, if we hadn't cast the Cruelty, he might have gone face with the Jade Light Ranger, which would have been huge for us. I mean, this is Mythic; people aren't making plays that bad.
But it's good. It's good to
happens.
Leave the door open for your opponents to make mistakes.
Definitely, 100% agree with you, and I miss those lines sometimes, so I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, so we're gonna plus here. Nicol Bolas's trinket ability is kind of useless. I don't really find myself. Why? I guess he can still exile the land, but that was an interesting choice.
Augur is pretty nice here.
Yeah, Augur is super nice here. So I like just playing Augur and then leaving.
I would just Bedevil it immediately.
Right. Or we can just Angrath Rampage.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, go for it.
I think I'd rather just Rampage here, yeah? Or do we want to save that for maybe a big dino, like a Carnage Tyrant? Do you think that matters?
We have more Rampages.
Okay. So you just want to go ahead and use the Rampage? Okay. I'm loving the flexibility of that card. Like, it's just so nice to be able to hit planeswalkers or creatures. It's great. So yeah, so this way, with that line, instead of using the Bedevil, we have the option to cast down if he kills our Augur and to protect our Nicol Bolas, which I think is worth it.
Yeah, I was about to say.
He's going to leave that Chup.
If he had drawn a Chupacabra, then we'd be able to protect our Bolas. I mean, that's fine. If he wants to trophy it, that's fine.
And we got another one in our hand, so that's perfectly okay. So do we want to kill that 4/3 on this turn with the cast down?
I would.
So that way our Nicol Bolas is protected next turn? Okay. All right. So we're just going to slam jam a Nicol Bolas here. He's going to start losing lands.
Yeah.
Yep, and there's a concession. Oh, man. Nicky V is just insane. Like, every time he hits the table, I feel really good.
So many more resources in our hand, too. Like, we had that insight.
How many cards did we have in hand? That was like 5 or 6 cards at least.
We had plenty of resources.
Man, that's nuts. You are correct. This deck loves to face mid-range. Like, man, that was huge.
Yeah, Nicol Bolas unanswered is just backbreaking.
He really is. So this hand's awkward. We're not doing anything until turn 3 because of the tap lands or the check lands. And if he's mono red, we just die.
I would mull just because like Chemister's Insight is nice, but like if our game plan is to like not do anything for like 3 or 4 turns, it's probably not that strong.
Yeah, that just loses to mono white. That just loses to mono red. I don't really like this hand either, but I don't think it's going to get much better.
Just because like you can at least play Rampage. Yeah. So you have like some kind of action.
Oh yeah, we definitely leave that on top. So excellent. So now we get to play Steam Vents, and then we have the option to play Augur or Rampage. So that Steam Vents off the top was clutch. So their opponent on mono black. I think we're just going to play the Augur here. Yeah.
And we got our 4th land, so Insight is definitely going to be happening.
Yep. Well, I don't think we really wanted that card. I don't know what our opponent's doing on mono black. This might be that Chromatic Lantern deck. We'll see. So I guess he's going to take our Rampage here.
He might even take Insight.
Okay. And we drew another one. That's sweet. I'll play this tapped and just start chipping. I really love Augur Bolas. Like, I'm so happy to see that card in the format again.
In like blue-white red flash with Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, that deck was sweet. Yeah, Reclamation Angel was fun. I wasn't a big fan of Thragtusk, but all right. So I think we just want to. We've got this Cry of the Canarium to answer that, so I think we're just going to Chemister's Insight and take the hits from this Plague Crafter. I'm not. I mean, our life total is a resource. This isn't a double elimination tournament. I don't know what he's doing either. This is weird. The fact that he played a Plague Crafter against a deck like us leads me to believe he has another one in his hand. So I'm actually a little cautious to play this one. Do you have any thoughts on that?
The thing, like, he might have another one in his hand, but he also might have just done that to take advantage of the token he made. We have so much draw and all that. I don't mind playing the Nicol Bolas. Like, we have 3 more, and it kind of forces him to deal with it.
Right.
And he's playing only black.
And I'm going to plus this instead of minusing it, because if I don't want him to Memorial to Folly this Plague Crafter. So
yeah,
that's a really good draw. You know what? He got rid of a cast down. Okay.
He might have another Plague Crafter, but if he doesn't have a way to deal with this Bolas, then he's gonna just
I find it odd that he just played that Plague Crafter against a deck that he knows resolves completely around Nicol Bolas. That was an interesting choice from our opponent.
I mean, he probably just wanted to take advantage of that token. Get that value. Because I mean, that token's not doing anything against 1/3.
It sure isn't, but that 1/3 is also not killing him, and not having an answer to Nicol Bolas lost in the game. So I mean, but he can't see our hand, so he doesn't know what we're doing. The meta is pretty fresh. So all right, let's see if we can get some more interesting games in. Let's get some real decks. All right, this hand is yeah, I'm really happy with this hand, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it unless you have any concerns.
We're not going to be able to play Liliana for a bit, but we have some action early. We got 3 lands.
Yeah, we're going to have some card selection, so our hand quality is going to be really good. So mono white, we're going to have a good blocker. We have an answer to a Banalish Marshal, so hopefully one of these augurs can find a Cry of the Canarium. That would be really nice.
One thing I like about this deck is that, unlike Esper, who usually folds to a Transform Legion's landing, we don't care that much.
Yeah, we don't just lose the game on the spot to that. So I'd be really happy to see a Cry of the Canarium off the top. Man, I'm so good at this game. Oof. I probably should have saved that for a turn, now that I think about it. But I was just really happy to draw it.
This way he doesn't trigger his Legions. Yeah.
Legion's landing. That's a good point.
All right, we're gonna take some damage next turn.
All right, so here our lines are Augur, Angrath Rampage, or just Bedevil, the Venerated Loxodon. Which line are you liking?
Augur and then Rampage.
Okay. Let's go ahead and Augur first and then see what we draw. Whiff. So why did you like this line over just bedeviling the Venerated Loxodon? Because I think we're just going to lose the Dauntless Bodyguard here.
Is going to get the boost from History of Benalia. So
right. So either way, we were losing a knight. Okay, I can respect that.
More damage to us than the Loxodon, and this is more mana efficient.
So I think we just double block here, and then, or maybe just single block, and then slam a Liliana. Well, we can't slam a Liliana. That's at 4. So what's your play here?
Just take the damage. He doesn't have burn,
right? And that way we can protect our Nicol Bolas. Yeah, I like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and shock here and just slam Nicol Bolas,
and just hope to get another land for Liliana.
And I'm gonna kill the locks unless you have any concerns.
No, that's fine.
Or do you want to try to plus so we can cast Liliana?
You can just they're kind of similar plays because like we're both like they both buy us some time, but
I kind of like taking the plus here.
I'm trying to think.
What's worst case scenario if we plus?
Well, if we plus, we actually yeah, go ahead and plus. We only have to chump like one of those creatures.
Yeah, I really feel like getting two with this Liliana is going to be huge if we do it. If he has Conclave Tribunal, we have Bedevil, or no, we don't have Bedevil. So I think worst case scenario is Conclave Tribunal right here, and even really that, we're still getting our Liliana's going to live. So is he going face? I feel like I have to block both of them. Is that feeling wrong?
I think you just have to block one. You can just jump.
You dropped out. I lost you.
Jump the Loxodon.
Okay.
I don't think you have to block both. Like, just block one.
Yeah, I guess I like that play in case he plays a third creature right here. Yeah, there was the Conclave.
I mean, that's fine for us.
So,
because now you just slam Lily, and we get the card draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get to draw a card.
I think it's hard to lose at this point.
God, the synergy in Liliana is just so great. Like, man, that's such a good feeling to kill two creatures, draw a card, and still have a Planeswalker on deck. Like, that's huge.
An army of 2/2s.
And if we could just get to play Nicol Bolas into an empty board next turn, like I don't see how we lose. Dauntless Bodyguard. And he conceded. All right. Well, that is 3 games that we've seen some really great stuff from this deck. Do you have time for one more, or do you want to call it a day at 3?
One more.
All right. Let's see if we can get a mono red matchup. That'd be cool to get a P. You know, we got a couple of different pieces of the meta. We got mid range. We got mono white. That mono white game played out exceptionally well for us. That was a lot of fun.
I think it's funny if if we played Nicol Bolas, I would have just like copied Lily. That's one of the few times where his static ability is relevant.
Right. I rarely do it, but you're right. Making more dudes could have been valuable. I don't like this hand at all.
I'm not a big fan either.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and ship this one back. And this is fine. We have a play on 3, and hopefully we rip a land. I think I'd leave a land on top. I'm not going to leave that Chemisters on top unless you disagree.
Because right now we need a second black source.
Yeah. Right. I never want 2 Chemister's Insights in my hand against an unknown deck. That's a mono white again. All right. Well, we got our second black source. Cool. But we really want to find one of our sweepers.
Yeah. I don't think we've played Widespread Brutality even once so far.
No, Law Reinforcer. That's interesting. Do I want to? I think I want to Angrath's Rage here just to keep Legion's Landing from flipping. Yeah, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and pop. Well, yeah. We'll go ahead and pop this off. I mean, he's gonna lose the 1/1 token, but you know, we want to save this Bedevil for
or something. Yeah,
a Benalish Marshal or something like that. I probably should have played the Sulfur Falls to not show the second black source. But it looks like he's just gonna play into Cry anyways. Hey, that card you were talking about. Do you want to play it now to keep Legion's Landing from flipping, or do you want to wait one more turn? Yeah, I like playing it now too. It does something with our mana. We keep Legion's Landing from flipping. We have a body, and if we rip a land, we win the game more than likely. Well, that's cool. Do you just want to kill that token and bash face for a lot?
Insight.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll wait and do that. and then we'll just take the hit from this token. That's not a big deal.
Like we could bash it and like get in, but I feel like getting more resources is going to be better because we're not the aggro deck here, right?
Sure, you have to understand if you're the beat down or if you're the control, and we're going to be the control deck 90% of the time. So that's a really good point. And there's a Loxodon, so we have a better target for Enter the God Eternals now.
Perfect.
So I still think we Chemisters here because this token will be able to block the Knight next turn, unless you have any thoughts. Perfect. All right, that Augur was not a bad pickup. So I'm going to go ahead and Enter the God Eternals. And you always target yourself with that, correct?
It's kind of situational, but yeah, we have more Chemister's Insights. We have 2 more, I think, because we put 1 on the bottom.
Right. Yeah. So, and we're not going to attack here. I don't think there's any reason to, unless you think we should.
The difference in life totals is like not that big, so we can just go ahead and start racing now.
That's a good point. I play a little too conservatively sometimes. This deck has so much inevitability though, like it's kind of, you get to a point where it's really hard to lose.
Yeah, I think we've hit that point.
Right. We're going to refill our hand here. So I think here we just play an Augur of Bolas and see what we hit. Let's not tap so much of our black mana.
Yeah, just tap the Izzet lands.
All right. I guess I just like Thought Erasure here, unless you think we just need to grab the Chemister's Insight to refill our hand.
I would take the Chemister's. Actually, take the Widespread Brutality, just in case he plays like another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just going to concede. Yeah, this game was over anyways. So, well, very cool. So that's 2 games against Mono White. I've really enjoyed playing this list. I think I'm going to play some more on stream later, but I really appreciate you coming in and helping me coach me through some of the basics of the deck. The play patterns for it are really interesting, and I thoroughly enjoyed those games. So is there anything else you want to add about the games we played or the deck itself? And also we need to give you a shout out for your Twitch and your Twitter, which I'll have linked below.
As far as the deck going forward, the new set came out just a few days ago. So I think there's definitely a lot of room for this deck to be tuned, but I think it has potential going forward. Some things that could be changed if you want to go with the amass route. I could see like having like 1 more Kefnet if it turns out that like it's just that good. I'm not sure if 4 insights are needed.
Yeah, I definitely see insight being a place we could make a cut. I'd be okay running. I know I would be okay running 3 copies of that card. Potentially, I'd be okay playing 2 because it's really slow against mono red and mono white. If you were to cut insight, what do you think you'd run another copy of?
I would either run a third. It'd be between like another removal spell with like Cry of Carnarium, depending on like how relevant that would be, or a second Kefnet.
Oh, I lost you for a second there. Sorry about that.
If I were to like cut 1, I might put in like another removal spell, like another Cry, or Widespread Brutality, depending on like what the meta is looking like, or I might just play a second Kefnet.
Yeah, I think that those are all really fair options. We didn't really get to see Kefnet on the field those games, but the games I have played him, he's felt really strong. Well, again, I really, really appreciate you coming in and kind of sharing your expertise with this list. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I think this will be a big competitor in the meta. I'm also excited to see what we can do with this in best of 3, because I think with a sideboard, this deck could really do some work. Because Esper does not want to see Grixis across the table. Like that is that is not a good matchup for them. I mean, how do you beat 3 Duresses, 4 Thought Erasures, and this many Planeswalkers? Like, it's
Like
just
I usually do well against Esper, but it's always like kind of tough. But I feel like post board Grixis has so much power that it's
right.
going to be hard for Esper to keep up.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's very proactive, and it's way more proactive than Esper. So, again, thank you so much for being on the stream, and I hope to see you again in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad we were able to win all those games too.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.